group of 6 pieces here are Bug Hotels by Hayley Parfitt, who's a Wrexham-based artist from North Wales, who's done several installations here over the last few years, and will be running a children's workshop here at Mayheartland doing Bug Hotels. But I think they're very sculptural in their own way. And this is we've just made this what will be a Willow classroom theatre space.
Underwater. It's looking more underwater.
And when we got to the waterfall, it was completely frozen, except for a certain area that was still just falling. And when we got to the waterfall, it was completely frozen, except for a certain area that was still just falling. I wanted it to be a cabinet of curiosities related to waterfalls. You know, every creature, every plant is just as important as we are.
coast side, and you have all these algae and mosses and lichens growing on them. And as the symbiotic algae in the coral, those are photosynthetic organisms, so they have photosynthetic pigments like chlorophylls, and that renders this surface here a little bit of green and grayish in tone. And underneath you have the limestone skeleton. And so it really is a nice coincidence to see that here, because if you take off then this living bit, then you suddenly end up with a white structure of the skeleton.
And that's similar, is that similar to coral?
And that is what would happen during coral bleaching. So in the first place, you would lose these symbiotic cells with the photosynthetic pigment, and you would see the white skeleton. And if they don't recover from this bleaching, the animal will die, and as a consequence, the live tissue will go, and then you will just see the bare skeleton.
Used to describe bleached coral was limestone skeleton. Its past life it was limestone. It's now marble, which means that in geological time it got changed. Tell me why it's white. What is this bleaching all about?
So a coral in itself, it's an animal, so it's a living thing. It's not a dead stone. It's limestone skeleton covered by animal tissue, but inside this animal tissue you have microscopically small algae sitting inside, and they're doing photosynthesis, and they're providing the animal with essential food. And if there are stressful environmental conditions, and if there's, for example, heating, or if the water quality is going bad, then this symbiosis, so this relationship between these two partners, between the algae and the animal, that breaks down, and the little algae are lost from the tissue. And while the tissue temperatures exceed the long-term average of the hottest month by only 1 degree for a few days to weeks, corals will start to bleach.
Did, from the ocean floor to the mountain peaks, and with the minerals and metals they bled old earth dry of, they invented technologies that made them think they were gods. Yet still they worshipped all manner of idols, old mammon above all. Only the primitive, they would have said, believed in such a primitive god. But the civilization they built across the globe was one vast cathedral to the old god, maintained and guarded by a web of technology from the microscopic...
This is on a site in Brazil. It's called Paracatu de Baixo. So there was a mining dam, the holdings. It broke and full of chemicals and killed over, this one I think killed over 200 people. But was to mark 1 year of the tragedy. Don't call it a tragedy, we call it a crime, because and they knew it was going to happen.
And those holding dams are a problem everywhere because they contain dangerous chemicals.
Yeah.
I know of some in Cornwall, for instance,
Yeah.
in old tin mines.
Yeah.
And they're polluting, gradually they're polluting the river in Falmouth,
Yeah.
for instance.
Yeah, those are the same, they were made related to the same crime, but 2019, it happened another one.
Really?
With the same company.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's
yeah,
really unacceptable and
are
yeah.
any steps being taken against the company? Or?
Yet they've been taken to court, but it's still rolling in the courts, and they haven't done it properly, and they contaminated the whole river up to the Atlantic, you know. So, did you know about this?
No.
No. Yeah. It's one of the biggest environmental crimes of all time. It's, yeah. Because the mining companies, one of them is a BHP Billiton.
Oh yes.
So it's British Australian.
Yeah.
So
very big company.
yeah. So that's why the London connection and it's one planet, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
It's not just Brazil's troubles. Yeah. So this is in Altamira, in Pará, in Brazil.
Right.
This was a protest, and we are pushing in a canoe inside this meeting about a hydroelectric dam, Belo Monte. So there are 200 people behind me, and they didn't let us in. So I dressed up as my clown, and I said, I'm a fisherman. I brought my canoe, let me in. You're gonna disrupt the river.
Yes,
and so we pushed ourselves in.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And those other two photos are to do mining crimes in Brazil.
Okay.
Thiago Gamboge, I'm a dancer, actor, activist, and those are a series of 3 photos, but I've done many other work generally on the sites of the crimes, or in the streets as well in London. And 2019 I was arrested in the Extinction Rebellion protests in October. So it doesn't stop us until we make those horrible issues be resolved in a positive way.
You mentioned the Extinction Rebellion, the October uprising.
Yeah.
I've got a film exhibiting here from that. I don't know if you've seen it.
No, is it in the house?
It's here. Would you like to see it?
Yeah, yes please. Yeah.
You may be in it.
Yeah.
Of course, all the song carriers and bringing the life to the streets, you know, our heart and the soul of, you know, what does it mean to be alive?
Yeah. Beautiful, the silence there as well, the contrast, isn't it? The silence really heightens our awareness, I feel, too.
Yeah, I feel that's something that is so powerful, isn't it, about the Red Rebel Brigade, the fact that the total silence, slowing everything down. What was your experience of being arrested?
Oh, it was not pleasant, was it? I mean, first of all, I was arrested for possession of a tiny bottle of food coloring. I did a piece called Amazon's Ashes, which was about the Amazon's fires.
It's about climate change, but it's also about species loss. We're losing, threatened of extinction, 1 million species across the world. We depend on these species for our food, for our livelihood. We're losing the bees that pollinate the plants that we need to survive. We're losing earthworms that help the soil. We're losing 1 in 5 British mammals is now at threat of extinction last year. Sorry, 1 in 4 last year, it was 1 in 5. We haven't seen seen fossil fuel emissions, well, carbon dioxide levels this high for over 250 million years. And last time that happened, we had 97% of life on this planet was extinguished.
We are in desperate trouble. For every gallon of petrol that you burn, producing intense heat, 60,000 times as much heat gets trapped in the atmosphere over the succeeding years by the greenhouse effect. Fossil fuels are weapons of mass self-destruction. If we do not stop using them, we will sink our civilization quite swiftly.
It was excellent. Yeah. Anita?
Yes.
Yeah, beautiful work.
Thank you.